Everybody for tuning in today. I'm really excited for this conversation. As PandaDoc, we love document automation. We love document processes. While it can be a somewhat boring topic, we like to make it exciting, right? So today I have Frank and Scott with me from PandaDoc and BrainSell, one of our fabulous PandaDoc partners, to talk about just document life cycles and document automation. So we'll get into it. First, a little bit of housekeeping for the audience. If you're having trouble with audio, hopefully you're a lip reader. You can see to maybe try to dial in via phone. That should kind of take care of any kind of audio issues you're having. Be sure to also submit questions live. I'll be, of course, moderating and hosting today. But I will be monitoring the chat and the Q&A. So if anybody pops in and has any questions, feel free to leave those for Frank, myself, and Scott. And we are recording this session, so we will make sure that everybody gets the webinar after we're finished and wrapped up today, probably within the next 1 or 2 days. That should arrive in your inbox. So yeah. Again, ask away. We're here to help. So I'll introduce myself first. Again, I'm Bethany Fagan. I am head of content marketing here at PandaDoc. I've been with the company. I celebrated my 7th anniversary this year, which is wild. Again, my team is all things content marketing. So my team executes live events like this. You might have seen Travis Tyler all over LinkedIn for the podcast, the Customer Engagement Lab. Be sure to check that out too. My two speakers here, I'll let them kind of introduce themselves. Scott, why don't you take it away first?
Sure. And so my name's Scott Bilodeau. I'm the Director of Solutions Engineering here at PandaDoc. Bethany's overshadowing me by 2 years. I've been with PandaDoc for 5, which seems like forever. And my team is responsible for all things technical validation when it comes to our sales cycle. And so ensuring that we answer all the questions up front and that, what you want to do with PandaDoc is possible and get you over the line there. So happy to be here.
Yep. Thanks, Scott. Frank, love for you to introduce yourself.
Sure. My name is Frank Cuccio. I'm a customer success manager at BrainSell. I actually recently moved up to account executive.
Congrats.
Thank you. And then, a little bit about BrainSell. We're a software technology consultancy. We try to help our customers grow and scale by finding the right software solutions for them. And, we implement PandaDoc. We encourage all of our customers to build it into their tech stack. And happy and excited to talk about that today.
Awesome. Thanks, Frank. Okay, so I'm going to launch a poll to kind of help us get us started here. And it's kind of a segue into our first kind of topic, if you will. But I'm curious to hear from the audience, how many steps on average they think there is a document automation, like in a document automation process. There obviously is not, I guess, a wrong answer here, but there is a specific number that we're going to cover today. So this is kind of a guess on how many steps that we'll cover in this session. And of course, there's some smaller steps in between those kinds of areas, but I'd love to hear what everybody thinks as far as, again, how many steps there. Of course, I had to throw in a Mean Girls reference because why not? I mean, the limit does not exist. I know everybody probably would agree with this, that there's a bunch of different steps and everybody's automation process and document process looks different. But yeah, curious to see what our audience here is, what they're going to think. Scott, Frank, any guesses where you think the majority will lie?
I mean, for me, it really goes down to each individual customer, but the limit doesn't exist. I think is probably would be my lean to.
Yeah.
Right.
Or 5+. Is there a difference?
Yeah. Really.
I would add too that, there may be, different steps for different clients, but I think the goal in our discussion today is to figure out how we can, simplify those steps and get the most, information that's usable out of each one.
That's right. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and end the poll because we're a little light on attendees today, but so it looks like we didn't get anybody to comment, but I think that's okay. Like we'll let everybody kind of consume and leave their chats and leave their comments in the results later. So yeah. Okay, so back to our conversation today. So I'm going to set up Frank and Scott here a little bit, but again, today's conversation is really about the document lifecycle and document automation process. And there's 4 key areas that Scott and Frank are going to touch on today. Again, around source of truth, kind of what that looks like and what that really means when pulling information from one system to another. 2, kind of where PandaDoc really shines, in my opinion, is design and control. Again, we want to empower our customers to not share boring, flat documents, if you will, but something that looks engaging and colorful and on brand. So they're going to kind of dive into that. 3 is around acceptance. So accepting that document and kind of moving to that next stage, if you will, and the customer relationship, I think, is a really good topic to kind of touch on. So we'll go there. And then what happens after everything is kind of wrapped up in a pretty little bow, right? Signed, sealed, delivered. So what looks like beyond that, which I think is a really strong area that I think a lot of people just think, well, it gets signed and it's done and everybody moves on. Well, there's other teams that get impacted by that. So we're gonna talk about that stage as well. Okay, Scott, Frank, I would love you guys to kind of talk about each one of these, about, why does anybody care about this topic and why is this relevant for them? I think for me, all of these things are kind of keys as to why we produce really great content here at PandaDoc. We want to show the value of, a simplified, streamlined, easy document automation process. But Scott, I'll let you go first, on why somebody should care.
Yeah, there's 4 key pieces are really, when we talk to customers at PandaDoc, where we try to lean into. For some customers, they may be combined into 1 or 2 steps, or for others, expanded into multiple steps. But really, right, we got to identify where your source of data is, and then where you got to merge and create documents from that. Everything else in between is kind of the nitty-gritty that goes into it. And what it really comes down to is being able to create beautiful proposals, contracts, employment agreements, anything that you're using inside of your business to do business, and reduce all of the other clutter that goes around it. Frank, I know at BrainSell, you use PandaDoc, right? Do you mind
we do.
talking about how that came to happen?
Yeah, so just kind of an overview of how we use PandaDoc. I'm going to broaden it a little bit to kind of look at all 4 of the things we talked about before. We use our CRM. We're sales users. Our use case is pretty basic. We're tracking our opportunity in CRM, and when we get to the point where we need to quote it, we've got our integration set up with PandaDoc that pulls in, all the data fields that we've already filled out in the CRM, being our source of truth, and we pull it into a template that we've pre-built. So it really speeds up the process, of preparing that proposal, because I'm not in there, retyping everything or trying to figure out what terms and conditions I need to use, because this is all set up ahead of time. Then we send it out to the customer. We get the data and analytics that PandaDoc has available for us. I see when they open it. I see how long they spent on each page, which I love. I get the notification on my phone or in my email that says so and so viewed the document. And if I haven't heard from them, as soon as I see that, I'm getting on the phone. I'm giving them a call, trying to close that deal. And once it is closed, we've got an extra step that we've kind of added recently, where after we've redone all our templates, we've standardized our statement of works, so everything kind of fits into these models. Now we take the statement of work and it's getting imported directly into our project management tool. So it was solving a problem that we had because we were running into project issues, where one account executive statement of work was slightly different from another. There was some gray area, and when the project managers were trying to run the projects, it led to a lot of confusion. So we're hoping to be able to eliminate that by standardizing it, for everybody. And then being able to just import it right into the project as like different tasks just makes everybody's lives easier.
Yeah.
And then, one last thing, just the storage component of having the document available inside PandaDoc is just really helpful. I joined BrainSell like 3 years or 2.5 years ago. And when I'm looking for a document from before we implemented PandaDoc, maybe the year before, it's really hard to find that. Now, like everything since, it's like, boom, instant, great.
Yeah. Frank, I think the big key there is we kind of touched on all three of these, right? You talked about how it's easier to be a little bit more compliant, and now that things are in one central location, it's easier to pull from an area. You mentioned it's also easy for errors to kind of be reduced because it's pulling the information that you already need. You're just kind of doing a double check in a second set of eyes. And then I think too, the great experience that you're providing too, like you said, the old documents versus the new documents and how they look and feel is probably much different. So I'd love to get into the first step here. I know, Frank, it's really great that you kind of recapped all 4 steps, or the kind of what it looks like for you guys. But I think one area to kind of start is around the creation process, right? And how do we look at making sure that we're creating documents that are accurate, that are really beautiful, and of course are put our best foot forward, right? So Frank, I know at BrainSell, you guys work with a lot of companies who are kind of pulling from their CRMs, and can you talk a little bit more about what that looks like and what we mean by a source of truth here?
Yeah, sure. So one of the things we preach at BrainSell is you have to have one system that's kind of your Bible or your source of truth that kind of all the other systems are going to tie into. So just one place where that data is going to be accurate, and that when it is passed into other systems, there's not going to be discrepancies. So, for us and for a lot of our customers, that source of truth is going to be the CRM. So many of the implementations that we've done with PandaDoc, we're making sure that their CRM and all the fields that they care about that are going to be pulled into the document are able to be mapped over, and trying to make them more efficient that way.
Sure. And Scott, as someone in your position, right? I mean, obviously you're working with a lot of customers. What does source of truth mean to you, and how are you communicating that to customers?
Yeah, I mean, for us, it's where everything starts. It's, for pretty much all of the customers that my teams are involved with, they do have CRMs because we're on the more technical side. And so we're having those conversations of, what data do you need in your proposals? Where does it live? Let's have your team make sure it's up to date in your records of truth, your CRM, and then merging those into PandaDoc. We do also have a lot of clients who might not have a CRM. And
Right.
In that case, they still leverage, in this case, PandaDoc as a source of truth, or maybe an Excel file or something local on their computer. And so it really doesn't matter where that source of truth is, as long as you know where it's at and you can reference it and pull from it. And so that's really, for us, just that identification is really the important piece.
Yeah, I think that's important too, because I don't want people to be afraid, like, oh, I don't have a CRM, or I don't have, some of these fancier tools that maybe some of the larger organizations that we work with. And I think that's important. It's like, it doesn't matter. What matters is like, where are you pulling information, and what's your point of entry, right, if you will. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be fancy, which is good to know. We can work with it all. So, okay, step 2, again, as I mentioned on the top of the call, this is probably my favorite feature of PandaDoc. Obviously, I'm a marketer, I'm a creative. I like pretty colorful visual things. But I think, once you kind of have pulled from your source of truth, it's time to make the document look as pretty as it possibly can. So I think one of the big features that I love about PandaDoc is kind of the total customization of it. And when it comes to branding and personalization, I think one of my onboarding kind of projects was to create my own PandaDoc proposal. And I think it was the year I got married. So I did like a wedding proposal kind of thing. And it was really fun to drag and drop images and colors and all sorts of things. But Scott, I'll let you start here. You know, what do you think customers kind of struggle with when it comes to designing their documents or kind of putting some of these elements into documents?
Yeah, and so I guess struggle here would be just breaking out of like the paper box.
Yeah.
A lot of our clients come in and, you know, PandaDoc is an eSign vendor. We have our own electronic signature. We're one of the top 5, I would say, players in the world. But we also do document generation, which is a big change for a lot of customers who are coming to us at first. And they say, here's my PDFs. I want to upload in the PandaDoc drag and drop fields and send them. And it's like, yes, we can do that, but you're missing out on so much more. And so for a lot of people, it's, you know, it's converting that flat content into rich media, pulling in reference videos, knowing when people click on those videos, what sections of them they're watching, you know, bringing in conditional content that locks over from our smart content. So if you're selling, you know, if you're selling a proposal into California versus Texas, you might require different legalese in that contract. And instead of managing 2 different PDFs that your legal has to update manually, maybe you want to make that more into a rich online document that you can make conditional.
Yeah.
It's all of those things that, you know, some of it's education cost, you know, getting to learn PandaDoc, but once you get over that hump and see what you can do kind of in a 21st century world outside of PDFs, it's where you really start to find that value.
Yeah. Yeah. Frank, anything else to add there?
Yeah, and I would say one of the things I've started to incorporate into my own documents is the video content. So, you know, when I'm putting a proposal together for a software, you know, solution, and maybe I'm throwing in a 2-minute overview clip of, you know, what the software does and, you know, the highlight reel, so to speak, you know, because it can get the point across and the value across again before the signer is, you know, making that decision or putting pen to paper.
Sure.
So
Yeah. I love that. It's like because I think a lot of us, obviously, we don't want to read anything too cumbersome, right? So I like the video idea, right? I mean, there's tons of free tools these days, like Vidyard or friends of ours. Loom is really great, right? Where you can just record a, you know, 90-second intro. So then again, they continue to put your face with your name and kind of the correlation between the document and the proposal and then the company that you're and whatever you're trying to sell. I think that's a great idea, Frank, is like, hey, here's a quick little overview if you don't want to scroll through a bunch of different pages, but still worthy. But yeah. Yep. And then just a call out here too, you know, we have PandaDoc does work with our customers to take any kind of existing documents that you have that you're looking to convert into PandaDoc and making sure that they look beautiful, maybe adding a little more enhancements. And then we also do offer a Canva integration too that really helps if you're light on a team to help you make things look beautiful. Canva is great to kind of help, you know, bring in logos and colors and then bring those elements into the PandaDoc documents. So wanted to call those out there for those. Okay, so we've created the doc, we've put our best foot forward, we've made it look beautiful. So I think let's talk about acceptance of a doc, right? Like the agreement, if you will. So I think, Scott, refresh my memory here. What were the key areas that we kind of wanted to touch on when it comes to acceptance? There's a lot of things that we could cover here that I think are really, really relevant for customers. But again, I think you mentioned the big key is that we have a built-in e-signature solution that really kind of helps simplify a step for customers. And then we can kind of dive into some of these other bullet points too, but I'll let you cover eSign first.
Yeah, and so acceptance is a little different for every customer kind of that we see for your business. Some of it, as we mentioned, does include payments, but the core of that pretty much for every business is getting a signature on a piece of paper. and that's what's important. So at PandaDoc, we offer a standard electronic signature, the same security and controls of everyone else in the vendor, as well as a qualified electronic signature, which is that top line step that's required for mortgages and other high level legal documents. And so with that, right, it's all about with that goes into also these revisions and iterating steps that really pulls the design elements into the acceptance phase when you
Right.
convert a document from a standard PDF into a living web document where you can start to make red lines and edits inside of these live documents versus printing something off, going back to the original PDF, editing it manually, re-uploading it, and then sending it out for signature again. And so those are some of the core pieces there.
Yeah. I think for me, the favorite is obviously the analytics. Frank, I'm sure you hear that from customers too, right? And you kind of already talked about it, right? As a rep, how amazing it is to see when somebody has opened the document. And then I think the follow-up piece, like in a timely manner, is really key.
Yeah, no, for sure. It tells you how many seconds they were looking at each page, which I find awesome because, if I haven't heard from them or I feel like I'm getting ghosted, then I can look through and sort of suss out, where the problem might be and hopefully try to resolve it. Seeing that somebody opened the document like 6 times, in a day, that's always a good indication that, this is probably going to move forward soon. But another thing I love is just like the comment feature. Like I can just make a comment on the side and I can, send it to the customer and then they can reply there to just keep the, everything together in one place.
Yeah. Yep. I think it eliminates the back and forth in emails, right? Which things can totally get lost in translation there. And then to your point, Frank, right? Like if you're seeing somebody spend a little bit of extra time in a certain area, that's where that revisions thing comes in easily too, right? So it's like, hey, if you need to make a tweak, can go in and edit the document very quickly. So then we can get to the acceptance phase faster too, which I think is another key piece. Okay, final step. What happens after we sign, right? I think a lot of folks I mean, I wouldn't say that everybody thinks of PandaDoc just as like create, send, track, and sign, right? But I think a lot of people kind of forget about step number 4, which is like what happened with the aftermath, if you will. Obviously there's, depending on the size of the company, and again, it looks different for everyone, but it's, depending on whether or not they have to loop in finance, or maybe it's an HR situation, right? Where there's like a paperwork for an employee, or, I think there's different kinds of areas around talking about storing the doc, one being able to find it later, because we know that things get lost all the time. And then just, again, I think going back to even the first stage, right, is like updating your source of truth and keeping it updated for hopefully years to come. Frank, do you want to talk a little bit more about storage and beyond here? Yeah.
So, to reiterate, kind of what we're doing is using the standardized document to be able to bring into the project management tool. So the project's already set up. But I've got customers that, do different things as well. I know one of my customers, when a document gets signed, they have the ability to pay right there, but also the signature, I forget the specifics, but it's integrated in some way. It rolls them into a marketing campaign with, various marketing emails. Another one has similar, not marketing, so to speak, but reminder emails that go out like, hey, you paid for this. Like, I need you to follow, complete this step. Yeah. So, it's not the end when they sign the document. You can make that, the first stage in the next part of this engagement.
Yeah. It makes handoff super easy, right? Mm-hmm. I think, Scott, I'm sure you've seen a lot of customers too, where they have multiple teams. You've worked with big and small ones, right? So they probably have a lot of steps after something is signed, not only with a handoff for like, I know at PandaDoc, it's even not cumbersome, right? But we obviously have, when the deal is done, it gets handed off to our onboarding team. They have to start work on converting documents. They have to start work on scheduling training with customers. So, and then of course, keeping all of our systems of record updated too, after something is signed. So yeah, I'm sure you've seen a lot of complicated, but maybe complicated and then uncomplicated by some of the post agreement.
Yeah, I think the thing to remember is that business doesn't end when you get a signed document, it just starts, right? And a lot of that, this ties into to the compliance and where we started with your source of truth earlier, Frank, right? You were talking about taking that data from the proposal, that scope of work, and moving it right into a project management tool. And so, right, when we talk about reducing errors, most people just think about generating the proposal or generating the contract and reducing errors there. But it is really about that entire life cycle of the document and removing any piece of human touch you can. Every piece that you remove reduces your costs to the company, makes you more effective, and provides a better service to your customers in the long run. So it's just what we try to focus on.
Love it. Okay, Frank, I feel like you've kind of covered this at length, right?
Yeah.
Is there anything
there's
else?
Too much more I can add.
Yeah, I didn't know if there was anything else. I guess talk to us a little bit more about how BrainSell works with your customers, and like maybe if somebody on the call today was interested in kind of looking at BrainSell, just maybe talking a little bit more about how BrainSell could help their process, or yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So, if you wanted to reach out to us, we basically would walk through your current document process, understand how we can make PandaDoc work to make it more efficient, talk to you about what your source of truth is, and if you don't know, like help you figure that out or create one, and then we'll talk to you about other pieces of technology and see if there's other ways we can use integrations or anything else to kind of make it work for more than just the document creation,
Sure.
kind of taking that next step.
Sure. Yeah. And I'll have Frank's contact info on LinkedIn after when we're wrapped up here. We're running short on time, so I'm going to skip the poll for this one. Anybody has any questions? Again, I want to kind of touch on a couple of resources, feel free to leave those in the chat. But a couple of things that I wanted to leave today's audience with on as far as things to check out post this conversation. We talked a lot about, again, automations and systems of record and all sorts of things. PandaDoc does offer a ton of different integrations, CRM integrations, payment integrations. There's also customization behind some of those integrations too. So again, if there's other tools and things that you're looking to pull from into PandaDoc, I'm sure if there's a will, there's a way. We can certainly figure it out with a lot of different integration partners that we work with. Again, PandaDoc, another great thing that we love to tout here is our very robust support team. We invest a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of money into a very amazing support team. We have live support 365, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. They're always there to answer tickets and calls. And again, the onboarding team is phenomenal. They do a great job of taking really good care of our customers, making sure that they are up and running in a timely manner on PandaDoc, and so that they can continue to send out beautiful, great looking documents. I also included a BrainSell resource here. I don't love always using the DocuSign word, but we'll say it today. Obviously our probably number one competitor that we come up against is DocuSign. So BrainSell's done a great job on writing us a little definitive comparison guide between PandaDoc and DocuSign. I will say it's unbiased, but again, we had BrainSell co-host with us today. So of course they're big fans of ours, and we're big fans of theirs too. So thank you guys for that. Scott, Frank, any other last words? Again, everybody who wants to connect with Scott and Frank, do so on LinkedIn. I've dropped their LinkedIn profiles here so they can shoot you guys a message. But any final words before we wrap?
Not really for me. I guess it's like, right, documents don't end when they're signed, right? It just begins.
Yeah, and if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Happy to answer them. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you everybody for your time today. Really appreciate it. And Scott, Frank, thank you guys so much for joining me. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Bethany.
Thanks all.